Your next 6 Caillou challenge is called Help the Bookseller. A bookseller has lots of books classified in 26 categories, labeled for each letter of the alphabet. Each book has a code, which they'll call C, of 3, 4, or 5 or more characters. So this would be a code. It's these 5 letter groups. They all look like they're 5 here, but that's the code. The first character of a code is a capital letter. They're all capital letters, but they're talking about the first one, so A in this case, which defines the book's category. In the bookseller's stock list, each code C is followed by a space and a positive integer n. Now they're talking about the 20, which indicates the quantity of books of this code in stock. For example, an extract of a stock list could be this thing we've been looking at. So you got a code and then how many books they have with that code. You'll be given a stock list and a list of categories in capital letters. So this first one, I'm just going to go ahead and rename it because it's a terrible name. We'll call that the stock list. And then the second part, let's just rename it categories so we're talking about the same thing. We understand what's going on. So you get this other array of strings that just has these capital letters. And so as you can imagine, these capital letters correspond to the first letter in each of these codes. So it's kind of telling you which categories they're looking for in this second collection. Your task is to find all the books of L with codes belonging to each category of M. So these are the categories we're interested in and no other. For the list, you have to return the string. So this is basically how they want it formatted. For each of these letters in M, you're going to give the letter, you're going to space, colon, space, and then the number of books in that category. So in the above example, let's see, we only had one A. So see how in this one you have a B1 here and a B1 here. So your total for B then, you'd have to add up 25 and 89 to get the total. If there's just one entry, obviously it's just that value. So anything else to say here? No, I think that's about it. There's one other catch actually. If L or M are empty, the return string is empty string. And I noticed one other thing, if there's 0 codes, see W was passed in the list and we didn't have any codes starting with W, so you put a 0 when there's, I mean, that seems pretty obvious, but I guess worth mentioning. And the other catch is if all of the category values are 0, you are to return an empty string, which you'll find out when you run the tests. So I think that's enough information to work on. You're supposed to preserve the order as given in M. Here they're listed alphabetically, but when you get into the tests, you'll find that's not always the case. They just have one test here, but you'll see it when you hit the larger attempt of tests. So I just gave an overview. If you want to read that thing word by word, go ahead and pause the video and do that. And then also pause the video so you can give this a try for yourself. And I'm going to do a little formatting here while you do that, and then I'm going to knock these down to lowercase. I use lowercase s when I use the string type. So there we go. All right, I'm ready to go here. So I'm going to go about this 2 ways. One I'm going to call the crazy LINQ way, where I'm just going to make this monstrosity of a single LINQ statement and sort of do the whole thing in it, just to have some fun with LINQ and show how you can do that. Maybe it's not the best solution, it's not necessarily clear to look at, but you know, it's good practice, it's good to know LINQ. So let's do the LINQ first, and then afterwards, if you want to stick around, I'll do one that uses hardly any LINQ, just a more vanilla kind of regular implementation, still not very long. But first things first, I'm going to cover this edge case where all of the values are 0, because I can't use that when I use my big LINQ statement. It'll not output an empty string. So I'm going to make a separate statement to handle that special case. So what I can do, I'm going to check if stock list, that's our list of codes, and maybe code list, or if you wanted to call it something like that, list of codes, whatever helps you understand it. I'm going to go through, and remember they give us these 2 bits of information separated by a space, the code and then the number of books. And so what I want to do is basically whittle these down to just their categories. So I'm going to transform, remember I'm going to use select we use to project a sequence into another form. Instead of this form, I'm going to project it into this form, just the letter itself, and then I can kind of compare that with the categories to see if we have any counts, if we have any hits or not. If it's all 0, then I'm just going to return empty string and be done with it. So for my variable name here in my select, I'm going to use code. Stock list contains what they were referring to as codes. Maybe you want to use C if you want to be really short. I'll call mine code. And then I can just simply take code substring 0, 1, right? 0 meaning start at the beginning of the string, 1 meaning just grab one character. So that's going to give me the A I want here. Good. But remember, this is select. It'll do it to every entry in stock list. So you'd have A, C, B, D, B, B, D. Good. So I have my letters now. And then I'm going to use a method that might be new to this series, but as you can imagine, when I get my IEnumerable back from the select method, it has all single letter strings, and categories has all single letter strings. And so now I'm kind of comparing apples to apples, right? So I'm going to use something. Let's go to enumerable. I think I have that up. Here you go, intersect. So it produces the set intersection of 2 sequences. You can sort of think of like a Venn diagram where the 2 circles overlap. You get what's in the middle, what's shared between the 2 sets. And so the idea is that if they don't intersect, that means all of the categories we're looking for, they don't appear in stock list. And that's what I'm going for, right? Then I want to say, hey, all bets are off, just return an empty string and be done with this thing. So I'm going to call intersect with our other collection, which is categories. And these are both string collections. Remember, arrays implement IEnumerable, so it can work with a string array just like it's working with an IEnumerable of string and a string array. And I'm saying intersect, and when I get that, I can count how many items result from this intersect. And if there are none, that's the case I'm interested in here, I'm just going to say return empty string and be done with it. Okay, and maybe I'll comment this out when we do the big general case, so just so you can see that this is necessary, at least for the way I went about the problem. Okay, now on to the larger problem. Let's sort of build this up a step at a time. That's how I like to do it when I'm using compound LINQ statements. So what I'm going to start with is, I'm going to say, well, it doesn't need to be a return yet. We'll return, but we're just going to start simple. We're going to go slow. So my categories list, right? These are the values that I'm actually interested in, and for those, I'm going to project those, and I'll use cat for short. It just means each category in categories. You can spell that out if you want. And let's start simple. Eventually I'll make a compound structure here, but let's start with something like stock list. We're going to check for the category in the stock list. We'll say stock list where, remember where's the filter, and I'm using code for my variable name in here because stock list is a list of what I was calling, and the challenge was calling codes. So stock list where code substring 0, 1, remember just take the first letter of the code, and I want to find out where that's equal to the category. So equals cat. Okay. And maybe we'll start with that and just make something simple and just sort of check this out, because I know it can be hard to visualize these. I just want to see how this thing grows as we expand it. So let's just return a bogus value just so we can run. Okay, console doesn't exist, so we need to bring in the system namespace, right, for console right line. And so yeah, right now this is an enumerable. So what we did was we took categories and we selected and we transformed each of those single letters into stock list, and we filtered that down to where the code, each of the codes, is equal to the category. So actually, let's do this. Might be a little easier to see. Remember, I often use string join to just kind of glob all of the elements into a single string. And I use the hyphen instead of a space because each item has a space in it, and I wanted to be very clear where these went into different elements. So yeah, if you have an IEnumerable, you can just do string join to, if you just want it in a single string. I'm just trying to show you what we're working with at each step, because if I type this all out at once, it's, you know, it's a little too big of a jump for a learning series. So good, you can see what we're getting here then. Each of these things is an IEnumerable. It's a collection of these codes where they match the categories. And so what else I should do here is, to make this clear, we should do something to show the input. So you can go something like for each var code in stock list, console right line, code, and then that will support what I'm writing below. And then var cat in categories, same kind of thing, console right line, cat. And so let me see if this kind of reinforces why we got the output we did. So yeah, you can see these are the codes we got. And I suppose you could also just look at the test down here. It's the same as this. And you got, that made more sense. I guess I didn't need to do that. And you have the categories A and B. So that's why we got, for our last print statement down here, var thing and test, each item, we got the A's and the B's, right? Because we were in the two categories we were told to look for was A and B. So it gave us all the A's and all the B's, right? So they're kind of grouped just how we want them for our answers. So I hope this, you see how we can sort of build on this to get the output we want. There's still a little more work to do, but let's get back to it. So now we're at this point where we have the groupings of the categories that we want. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to add up the numerical values in each group. That's ultimately what I want, is a letter category and a number for the number of books in it. So for the next step, I'm actually going to build on this. Single substring 0, 1. I'm just going to do this on a new line so you can see it. And do you remember aggregate? We've used this in the past. You can think of it in general like adding, but it's much more generalized than that. But the easy way to sort of wrap your head around it if you forget is aggregate will sort of, simple example is just adding up a bunch of numbers in a collection. Kind of like, but we have some for that we can use, right? So this is more general. You can do products, or you can combine things however you want, really. Power is yours. So what I want to do is add those book values. And to do this, you can certainly go, I encourage you to go look up aggregate. It's in your enumerable. Right at the top there, it's the first one, first enumerable method. And we'll follow this pattern they use. They have a seed value, they call it, where you get to set the initial value. Let's use the one with integers because that's what we're doing. We're going to copy this pattern right here. And so this is your running total, and next is like each element in ints in your collection. They're calling it next. I'm just going to follow their pattern right here and do it like that too. So aggregate 0, we have our running total and the next value that we're dealing with. Let me put our arrow there and we can set up the body. So what do we want to do? Each time we want to add to the total, right? With the book number count, right? We're going to keep adding that to the total. So not very much to do with A, but in the case of B, at least this is a better example. We have a 250 and an 890 we want to add up. So to do that, we've got total, and remember next contains our actual string value, this whole thing. So we can chop that up though. We can say next split, and I'm not even going to pass a parameter to split, because you remember by default it'll split on the space character, which is exactly what I want. If you wanted to do something else, you can explicitly tell it what to do, but it's going to do that by default. And so I know there's only one space, provided the input is always valid, and it is here, not in the real world, so you could check if you want. But it'll always be two parts. There's one space, so your split method will return a string array of size 2. The first string will be, in this case, dirty, and the second string will be 600. So I'm going to use index 1 to get the second string there, which is the number value, right? But remember, this thing right here is a string. So do you remember how we can convert those? Convert it to an int. Convert to int. Good. So maybe we should update our print here and see kind of what we're working with right now. So you can see already these, keeping track of all your parentheses get a little crazy. And what's this one do? So that might be the right format. Let's sort of update here after adding this second bit here. So this is interesting, right? Look at this output here. Kind of cool, right? We got the 200, which was the only A value, and then we got that 1140 we wanted for 250 plus 890. Very good. So we're getting closer. Now, how can we combine this? We want both the category and the number, right? We need to get to this final form, and eventually we'll dress it up with parentheses, but let's take it easy. Let's get the letter and the count. Those are our two pieces of data. So what I'm going to do is, actually, instead of just getting that count number, I'm going to make a more complex structure here. So cat now, I'm going to turn this, instead of just getting the number, I'm going to do a tuple, which you can think of like a pair. We've seen this in other challenges, not many, so but you can think of it like a pair. It's just a simple kind of throwaway data structure that I'm using. I could make a class for this, but tuple is handy if you just want a throwaway thing that you're not going to use all over your program. If I were using it all over my program, I would make a dedicated class for it. And that's sort of my thinking behind that. So Notice I do string int. We already have the int, we have the book count, but I want that letter, that category letter there too. So that's why I made this data structure. So now think of it like instead of that 1, we're going to have a pair. And for that, I'm going to say, we actually constructed inside here, and I'll say cat, which is, remember, the letter from categories, the single letter, and then my number to make the pair. So I'm going to have to add another parenthesis. There we go. See how it closed? See how Code Wars highlights? That's what I wanted. I wanted to close this tuple. 2 pieces of data, a string and an integer. This is the string, and then this whole other mess makes the integer. I told you this was going to get out of control with the LINQ, so, but it, you know, I do think it's a good way to learn. So good. Now we have a pair. Let's go ahead and check it again and see what we get. Hey, look at this. This is looking a lot better, right? Thing. You've got, you even get the parentheses. I didn't write those, but you get them with the tuple when it's printed out there. So this is getting pretty cool, right? So all we have to do at this point is, imagine if we changed this comma into a space colon, and then we string joined each of these with a hyphen with space on both sides, and you can imagine that you're there. So let's do that. Then on the whole thing, yeah, let's string join. So I'm gonna get rid of the test, string join, and we're gonna join them with that hyphen, right? That's the bit I have highlighted below here. And so, comma, we're going to need another parenthesis at the end. This is going to close the join, right? So we got that part. And then at the very end, I'm going to replace, string has a replace method. And I'm going to say take your comma and replace it with space colon, like that. Remember, it already had the extra space built in, so I didn't need that. I just want to take the comma and pat it on one side. And so if I return this thing, actually, you know what, var test, and then what if we do, I'll let you see it one more time, test, before we just return it. Let's see if this works. I know it's a lot of punctuation to keep track of, so I might have typed something wrong. Oh, we're still returning the dummy answer, so let's try test. Okay, green, and you expand it, and look at that, test, printed out right, kind of cool, right? And so I'll hit the attempt, and cool. I'll probably submit mine like this, but yeah, a couple notes. You may say this is excessive LINQ here. You can see I'm running off the page. You know, my other alternative is to, you know, try to break this up into a bunch of other lines, and if you say that's really ugly, I'm not going to argue with you. And I don't like this. I look at this, and it, like you can probably see now that you don't even need the extra variable. I was trying to let you see that printed out to the console, but you could say, like, look at this alphabet soup here. You know, I can't just look at that and readily tell what's going on. And if you don't like that, stick with me and we'll do another one that's less succinct as maybe this one is. So I'll get rid of the print statements for that. But if you're comfortable and you're happy with this, feel free to abandon ship at this point, collect your kata points and go. Otherwise, I'd love if you stick around and we'll do something that maybe looks a little less frightening. So let's comment this out. I'll leave our input print statements. We'll come back to this. So another way you could approach it, let's make a list of tuples. That tuple worked well. It was a nice handy little, I like to think of it as a pair. I think that was, they had those in C++. I used to program a lot in C++. List tuple string int. What should we call it? Category counts or something? Category counts equals new list. Nothing new here, right? You know how to initialize a list. Just copy your type, put those parentheses. Good, now we're ready to use category counts. And so what we can do is go over each of those categories. This might be a little easier way to think about how this works. For each var cat in categories, what do we want to do? These are the values we're concerned about. Well, let's make a count for each one. We'll initialize it at 0 and we'll keep adding to it for each code we find that matches the category letter. So to that end, we'll also go over string, I'll do one without var, string code in stock list. And so just check if the code matches the category. If code substring 01, same, just like we did before, right? Equals cat, then you have a hit, and what you want to do is add to your count. Count plus equals. Remember we converted to int 32. That's string value. We could say code split in the second entry, which is the book count number. I think I got my parentheses right there. So you're building up this count. That's like our aggregate kind of thing that we had going on here. Add it up. And then finally, once you get that count done, you can make an entry in your list. You could say category counts. List has an add method, and we would say make a new tuple. That's the type of string to int, and we put our values in it. You can say cat, which is the letter, and then we want our count, which could be the sum if we had multiple hits, right? And you can imagine as this finishes, then your list is populated with all those tuple pairs. So it'll be a matter of outputting them in a similar manner. So I don't know if it's helpful if maybe I will show you what it looks like at this point. For each var, what do we want to call it? Var data in category counts, console, right line, we'll say data item 1. It's the category, right? And the count data item 2. That's how you access those tuples. I'll just report a dummy value in there just so we can run. Let me show you. This looks like uh-oh, I broke it. Namespace, oh sure, we're using list now, so we have to add using system collections, or system, wow, why am I forgetting the system collection? Okay, so now we have the code 1 and the category 1. Maybe we don't need those anymore. But look at these are what we have for item 1 and item 2. It's these last two print statements. That's perfect, right? That's the two pieces we need, and then we can just output it like we did for our MegaLINQ example. So let's go ahead and structure it the way we need it. I suppose I should cover that case where we don't cover the edge case where everything's 0, but maybe I'll do that so you can see that it fails and that logic is necessary. So let's just go, we'll do return string join, and we're going to join them again with that hyphen, and then we need our collection. So we'd say category counts, right? That's what we built up, and we're going to project it into a new form, these kind of pairs. It's not an ordered pair, but it makes me think of that when I see the data in parentheses like that. Select to project, right? And let's call it, or what do you want to call our variable? Whatever you like. And then we're going to say, start building what it should look like. Got open parenthesis, we'll say count item 1 plus that colon, oops, plus count item 2, and then our closing parenthesis. That close off join, it did. So I think I did that right. Let's go ahead and run it and see if it's happy. We should pass the test, but not the attempt. Okay, good. And then this should show that edge case that we had. So yeah, look at this. We had the 1. We had a lot of green, right? Everything was green except for this test 4. And you can see all the counts are 0. And what we returned this perfect, you know, like we preserved the order of the input, we formatted it nicely, but everything's a 0, and they want an empty string in that case. So that was the idea with this bit up here at the top. So you could comment that back in if you wanted, or suppose we could do something like this too. Why not? This is a learning video, right? You could go if category counts all, right? This will check. It'll return true if the statement's true for all elements in the collection. I would say count. We'd want to check item 2, which is the count. Item 2 equals 0. Return empty string. So it's another kind of way of saying it with a different LINQ statement. But yeah, if every pair in this category counts, its count value is equal to 0, and that's true for all of them, then return empty string. And I would expect this to pass if I did that right. So see, yeah. So yeah, that's another way to do it, but let's zoom out. Maybe you think this is better code. You know, you might be in that camp that says, this is a lot more clear what you're doing. You got this tuple list. I can see I'm scanning through categories, and for each category, I'm looking through all the codes, and then I got this count I build up, and then I make a pair of the category name with its count, and then, you know, I check this edge case quick, and otherwise I kind of format it into this output and return it. And so, you know, and I'll be the first to tell you, if I were looking at the commented out part or the uncommented part, you know, I would be able to understand what's going on quicker with this, you know. So you know, I'm going to return the MegaLINQ, I guess, but LINQ's not the end all, but it's still good to learn it. So go whichever route you want to be, whatever team you're on. Let me know if you're on team MegaLINQ or if you're on team I can understand the code quickly. We don't need these print statements anymore. And again, if I didn't include this, it would catch on that one edge case, but I think I demonstrated that well enough. Let's go ahead and hit the attempt. why not return the mega link, right? Then I get to be the cool kid for once. You know, I always kind of forego that, but it's fun to be the cool kid sometimes. You passed all. Good to go. Get our points and get us on to another challenge. More learning, more progress. Good. So go ahead and do your usual, look through the other solutions, see what you can learn. Man, I hate those parameter names they gave us to start with. Like, go back and look at it. It's like, who named that? Come on, man. There you go. It's a nice short one. This guy's in the cool club with me. Cool kid club. Yeah, cool stuff. So that one's pretty easy to understand and short. You know, it's kind of a nice middle ground. Yeah, that's the kind of you developing your style. You know, I'm gonna look through this too. You do the same. Otherwise, let's go to another challenge. Thank you for watching.